Well, this is the design integration class design discussion. This is the Rouges and the team Adam, Roderick, Michael, and myself, Herman, and we're about to start the discussion. First, we're gonna follow the guideline, and in the inquiry, I'm gonna share my screen with some of the questions that we're gonna follow. The first one is how was the learning material changed your perspective about the industry, especially specifically the design industry? And I'm gonna start in this month we usually talk about the identification and logo design. So to me, um, initially, I thought the logo design was mostly about aesthetics, but then we kind of went deeper and went beyond how they look. You know, you see more about the problem solving and a strategic and communication. I realized the importance of research and user-centered design. Also, I learned that sometimes the constraints of budgeting, if your design is too complex or is not adapt to many mediums, is hard to reproduce or make your message come across. And most important, I understand that collaboration and feedback from other designers or from other people is very important. Sometimes you can have a kind of a tunnel vision and you believe that your design is your baby and you need to understand that you're not designing for you. You're designing for your client, and your client needs have some specific needs that have to be accomplished. So, for that in mind, you need to be able to be open to take some criticism, and be able to not take it personal and be able to grow from that. How about we start with you, Roderick? What was your how was this learning experience change your perspective about the industry?
Well, it didn't necessarily change anything coming in from last month. I mean, it just broadened my horizons a little bit more. Just to touch on some of the stuff that you were talking about, it's not your baby is the key phrase that I get. And my perspective changed because I don't know if you've seen any of my designs or anything. I think I overdo it a lot, and I have to learn how to simplify because it's not just about me; it's about the client or the project. So in dealing with the elements, I can't put too many elements in. I have to simplify it and have those elements tell a story, which is the brand story, which is their perspective of what they're trying to accomplish or the meaning behind their voice and their what their tone is. So I learned that it's not more or less the more you put in, it's how you simplify things to tell a story. Yeah, that's pretty much what I can say. I mean, I won't go.
Well, that's a very, very good point. Sometimes less tells more. Uh,
Exactly, exactly.
how about you, Adam?
I mean, this month, I think, I think this month kind of got me a little bit. Actually having to like draw up um, hold on, let me turn my video on here too. Having to draw up the actual logos for, our thesis. Um, I'm not really a graphic designer by trade, so it's that part for me. Everything else is just kind of what Roderick was saying. It's just kind of broadening what we already kind of have been learning so far, but putting into practice some of the elements, trying to make a logo simple, but also something that's eye-catching and can
Different.
communicate. It's tougher for me to like draw it out and then, go into Vector, do the Adobe Illustrator and stuff. So it's been challenging, and I honestly have a newfound respect for any graphic designer now. So
Excellent. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I think that my standpoint is probably a little more similar to Roderick's in terms of me doing this on a consistent basis, being a graphic designer. Um, Knowing there wasn't anything that was really like brand new for me through this course, but I think it was an opportunity to be able to work on skills and remind myself of skills that I've already worked on and kind of worked through. For me, I think one of the best parts about it was the fact that some of those assignments we were forced to have 10 to 20 to 30 different versions of a logo where kind of I like also liked how you mentioned it not being your baby because I think for me even when I don't hold a logo or a design close to heart, I think I like to do it my own way. So once I have a good logo, a lot of times I'll just be able to just be like, okay, well, I know this is probably a really good piece of work. Whereas for me, it's like early on in the assignments, this semester or this month, I had logos that I really liked, but because the assignments made us do 20 more, I had to continue to work through a lot of those designs or a lot of those elements to really have a solid foundation or really have a solid piece of work beyond what I would have just probably stopped at normally as a designer. So it's kind of put me back in that place where for my own work, it's like, okay, now let me just continue to work through those things, even if it's a solid design immediately. Let me continue to just do my due diligence and crank out the little kinks in each design and try to really see how I can push it further. So yeah, I think that's what I gained from this class the most.
Excellent. The second question is discuss the challenge encountered while completing your brand projects in this course. And for me, there was a couple of things that I encountered that make me stop and think a little bit. One of them because my project was about child toys and the concept behind the company, it was balancing tone, between the playful and the professional appeal for kids and parents. Enable for me be able to bridge that those two concepts were a little bit challenging. Also try to visualize in abstract values because one of the company's values was nurturance that I had to go and use imagination and try to turn it into symbolic forms. And my other challenge was ensuring Esquivel is for the logo to be able to function in different packaging and different models. So the design has to be visually appealing, but at the same time have to be attractive. So it cannot be boring, but it cannot be complicated at the same time. So I have to be that sweet spot in the middle. And the animation at the very end, um, it was a little bit challenge because I use a lot of colors. I use a, some shapes that wasn't that easy to animate, but I think that for me that was the major challenges at the end. Um, how about you, Michael? What was your challenge while completing your brand's project?
Yeah, I think the first challenge was I think this is a challenge that comes up with all work for me, but obviously just really trying to find a way to stay true to the brand's integrity, stay true to what they represent, and then also create a logo that fits and completes, almost completes their brand in a special way. And I think also that on top of that, not overcomplicating things, because I think sometimes it's easy to try to overcomplicate the design when you're trying to create something true to somebody's identity, because a lot of times a brand's identity is so multifaceted. It's very, easy to want to be all over the place and try to use all these symbols and things that represent a brand
Exactly.
versus, trying to be very simple and not overcomplicate those things. So once you get to a point of trying to just create, like, you have this entire brand that has different people, different groups of people, different religions, whatever it is, represented in this one thing, and try to just fit it into or cram it into one logo design to represent the entire entity is really hard. But trying to find that one thing that really can symbolize them and really represent them, I think is really important. So just figuring out what that looks like, I think was really the main challenge for me.
Awesome. How about you, Roderick?
Basically, you guys touched on the same thing. The challenges. I don't want to say your ego, but you're doing something for someone else, so you're trying to incorporate everything you can think of. Like mine, I'm doing this ice hockey league. So, and they're the gamblers. So, everything associated with gambling, I'm throwing in there the cards, the dice, the poker chips, um, the hat, and I don't know if anybody looked at any of my logo
Yeah,
design.
yeah.
Just you've seen all those different type of things I'm playing with, and then I kind of got off track because it said take these and just add a little bit more, but or define it or refine it a little bit more. But when I start refining it more, I kept getting a different idea change, and that's like I can't refine this because if I refine this, then this has to go. So that was the challenging part. I won't even go into the animation part because I'm still having issues with my animation stuff. But the catalyst is I knew what he was talking about as far as the course wise. It's just the approach to doing the work. I've been having problems with After Effects for the longest, but in doing so, I learn a lot, and then I get frustrated when it doesn't come out the way I want it to come out. So I'm sitting there like, am I right? Am I right? Am I right? All I can do is just do. And as in doing so, I try to stay um, unique to what I'm trying to design and what the like I said, the voice and tone of what the project is. So if I'm going this route, if I feel like I'm doing too much, I simplify it, bring it down. And if you see my last logo design that I did, it's a simpler version, but I think I put in all the elements of what I needed to do to put something on the table that represented what the team would be.
Awesome. How about you, Adam?
Um, well, like I said before, the biggest challenge for me was actually just coming up with the logos. As Mike was pointing out in the last question, we had to come up with like 30 different logos, and I'm like, I can come up with five. I can give you five good ones, maybe, but that part was really challenging for me. And then as I went through, you start seeing all the different ideas that you have. And like you guys were saying, you do have to kind of keep in mind that this isn't for you. This is for, the brand or a business, whoever you're working for. Um, and so that part was also, kind of challenging. Um, and the animation portion isn't so bad for me because I'm actually good at After Effects. Again, I'm not the one that designs the graphics though.
Where
Like,
were you when I needed you?
like, like for me, like what I do, I like take, I give people at my current job, I give people, hey, I need, this graphic, this graphic, this graphic. They design it, and then I could put it together and animate a video or something with graphics already given to me. So the animation part wasn't too hard for me, but keeping my own logo consistent with the visual, I guess the visual guide or the brand treatment
Brand
design,
identity.
trying to keep it all. That was challenging for me because whenever I have a new idea, I'm like, oh yeah, throw the old one out, but I already turned in the old one. So it's like you can't go switching on them now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So so that's been my biggest challenge. I
Awesome.
it's just being consistent with it, I guess, is really the biggest challenge for me.
I see. Well, the next question, um, each of the members, each of us, should find a brand that we have not discussed in the we have not discussed in the class before, and compare it to a design concept that we have studied this month. So I hope you guys can see my screen. I picked this company. It's called Element. They do clothing, and I really like this logo. I like it for the longest time. The the visual is very simple. The logo um, has a little tree inside, and it represents kind of some branch. It represent element, the four elements of the alchemists of fire, water, earth, and wind. Uh, According to what I read, is kind of how they simplistic they see their designs and how they wanted to be on their approach to, and they don't want it to sound complicated. They are a skating clothing company. Um, Overall, the logo, products, and messaging work together in some urban energy. Something like that worked really well, I believe, because it's something that they put everywhere in the skateboards, and the like on the shirt, they use it everywhere, on the pants, jackets, anyway. Um, the more you know about the company, the more sense make the logo, and the deeper is their philosophy. So you see what is the intent to the message about the whole design. So I think this is a nice comparison. I don't know if you have any design or example. Let's how about you, Roderick?
I don't really have an example because when I was dealing with my elements, I was still dealing with my project rather than stepping outside the box to compare two different companies. But what I did was I just analyzed the two that we had in this course, which was Pepsi and that UG. Um,
Okay, yeah, the
I
skates,
use
yeah.
those as a comparison. As far as the Pepsi, it was a little bit more um, in your face, I would say. It gave like a more dynamic um, approach to their logo, how they used it, where the UG was more like a simplified, a softer tone, if you will. Um, the lettering, I wrote a lot of stuff down. The color palette, it was just they were just different. You can just tell the different aspects of what company, how their approach was, what their identity was. Um, it was more like the UG was more. It felt like more like a natural
Earthy.
yeah, and then compared to Pepsi, I mean, you got the red, white, and blue in your face. With just you see it, and you can tell the elements per se, each one as they progress in time. As far as Pepsi wasn't as stagnant as the UG was, because like I said, UG you knew it was just earthy. It was naturalist. It was all about the elements of like earthly tones. Where Pepsi, like I said, it's a broader perspective. It's hitting different people. The uh, target audience was different. So, that's the only thing, like I said, the comparison was, it's how you approach and how you tell your own story is what I, came across with just comparing those two rather than just looking at a one product or one thing from a different company. Like I said, this last couple of weeks, I think it's been the toughest because you're allowed to do more, but in a approach where you need to make sure you're following you're consistent in your storytelling about what the company wants to portray.
That's right. Awesome. How about you, Adam? Any particular logo that
I I mean, I did not um, really prepare for that question. I I just went back to see if there was anything um, like there's one logo that really influenced my I'm doing Mandy Madison and I'm doing like the unfiltered tour or whatever. So it's supposed to be like raw and authentic uh for this, singer-songwriter or whatever. And the one I was going to kind of I was also going to use another logo that influenced is the ABC logo. It's the black circle with ABC. It's just straightforward. There's no it's literally very black and white. And I don't like to think always in black and white terms, but I feel like that really um communicates like simplicity. I mean, you can't get more simple than that.
correct?
So, Paul Rand, I think he was a genius
Mhm.
for it. I think we all could have came up with something like that, but um, yeah, I mean,
The
that's
right
all I
time
can
and the
say about
right. Huh. How about you, Mike? Any logo that caught your attention?
Yeah, so when I was doing my research on what logos could kind of work for, I guess, just inspiration and things of that nature, the one that kind of stood out to me was the Patagonia logo for the clothing brand. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but it's like a mountain with it has like a sans serif font inside of it, and it's really simple, it's rugged, and it's rooted in nature. And when you look at their branding on their Instagram or whatever social media, that's kind of like the identity of the brand. And I love how off the bat you know exactly what it is. So even if you go into a clothing store or whatever, anything, and you see their pieces and you're unsure of who their demographic is, as soon as you see the logo, you kind of have a very clear idea of the purpose behind the brand. And I like the idea of having purpose-driven concepts and the branding and even visual like storytelling involved in the actual logo. And I think that's clearly embedded in what they did with their branding. And so with this project or any project, I think that's something that I can kind of keep in mind of like if I had to do one thing or, create a logo or whatever that fits the brand, how could I create something that's purpose driven to the point that when you see it, you know exactly what type of brand it is. So, yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. The final question, and as a design team, the exercise is using the tools that we gain in this class. Um, let's say that due to our name, the Rogue, what can we what brainstorm the possible logos or the design concept that we can have coming up out of the name. So I think that from the name itself, you're talking about something that is rebel, something that is outlaw. So right out the bag, you're talking about something that break the rules, they change the norms, they kind of stands out with the purpose. As far as design elements to include, I will say I will use some distressed typography, grunge texture, and high contrast visuals. Something bold with red tones, red, black, something that definitely will call your attention and be like Roderick mentioned in your face. Something, oh, something is about these guys that's different, that is unique. Um, I think that as a designer, the Rogues represents creative defiance, and I think the target audience will be young adults, artists, underground, creative, something for that nature. Um, Kind of a artist under. Uh, I think this what it comes to my mind. Um, how about you, Roderick? Roderick, what do you use when it comes
Well,
to our name, the Rogues?
yeah,
What will
you pretty much hit the nail on the head on that one. Um, like I said, rebel, outside the box, outside the norm, kind of like the uh, modern day hacker. You want to call it that? Uh,
okay? I like that. Yeah.
on that note, I wrote down a few like glitchy effects. You know, some type of maybe a silhouette or a shadow type of um, logo design or something like that. Um, just to correlate or stay in the same tone or in the same
Yeah,
spectrum as
something with a mass,
yeah,
something. Yeah, I like that.
something in that tone. Like I don't know if who is what's that group that you every time you see something political on the news and they come out and the guy's wearing a mask. Um,
Um,
um, Something, but I don't know you're familiar with what I'm talking about, but something to that effect. Anonymous.
Anonymous,
Yeah, so
anonymous.
something to that effect. You're a rogue. I mean, you could go Marvel type of deal, but more or less since we're a group, I would probably go towards that, like a mask or
A
something.
bandana, something like that.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
just see eyes, like I said, a
so good.
shadow.
How about you, Adam? What are your take on the name and the concept, design concept for that name?
Well, I mean, the concept, like you guys said, it's like it's like a rebel, someone outside the box, someone that is kind of a, can I say the word badass
You can
on
say
here?
it.
I hope we don't get flagged for that one in the class. Um, so I was thinking, I'm from Alabama, so we're roll tide in this country. Um,
You right next door.
what's that?
I said you're right next door. I'm in
Oh,
Mississippi.
okay. Yeah, so I mean, my thought process, is like you have like the grunge, like you have Rogues, you have like the grunge texture for um like I'm trying to think, is it next Nexa Bold or something? I don't know how you pronounce that stupid font name. But but you have like a grunge texture to it, and then you have like an elephant like coming breaking through or whatever. So kind of where my mind was going. I was not going for like the stealthy or the anonymous type thing. I was like, shoot, what animal can you really not mess with? And, everyone talks about the king of the jungle, like lions or
But
tigers,
but
whatever.
they don't mess with the
Yeah, but exactly. But the elephants, that's why, that plus coming from Alabama, roll tide here. So
elephant.
I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool, but that's just my take on it.
Okay, we got 3 minutes left. Mike, what's your take?
Yeah, I like all you guys' ideas, and I think that where our heads are all kind of in similar directions. I think off the rip, I would think of something rebellious. I would think a grungy or gritty design. I really like the idea of the elephant or something breaking through, because and it's kind of less taboo and as the line or things of that nature, which I think is a point of a rebel. When I think of Rebel 2, the first thing I kind of thought of was like that graffiti or spray paint type of idea. Because if if I'm to see graffiti on the wall, I would think a certain type of person was to do that, and it's interesting because I think it's a dynamic of somebody who's breaking the rules, but also artistic. So I think that's something, that I would be okay with, being in, and I think a lot of people would be able to identify with. So I think that idea of maybe something graffiti wise, or even have a spray paint bottle or somebody graffitiing the word, something
Okay,
like that.
I
Those
hate
are,
I hate
those are,
to I hate to cut you right there, but
yeah,
time is about to run out. So
no, you're good. Yeah, yeah.
I thank you all, and I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna stop the recording, and thank you all for this conversation, and we keep you posted with anything in the future. Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Y'all
Talk to
have a
you
good one.
guys later. Bye.
All right.
Thank
So
you.